As you might imagine, structural functionalists want to understand what role is religion playing in our society. And in particular, again, not a question of what do people believe, but knowing that what people believe will guide their behaviors and influence and inform their decision making and the values of that particular culture. When you have religion in society, you are wondering the extent to which what that religion believes, whether or not it is functional for society. Is it a good thing for society? Are the amounts of religion in society good or not good for society? So, Durkheim, who we've talked about, Emil Durkheim, a number of times as a structural functionalist, was interested who he said that religion does three things for a society. What purpose does it serve? The first thing he says is that religion promotes social cohesion. So remember, Durkheim was one of the people when we moved away from the farms and into the city who asked the question, well, how the heck do we even consider ourselves to be a society? Or a group of people who are actually together. We used to find that sameness. Remember, he said, in mechanical solidarity, we formed a certain solidarity with one another because we lived together, we did all the same things, and we were alike. But when we moved into the city, we had different jobs and different expectations. We didn't interact with one another. And he says, well, maybe there was some organic solidarity in that. We are together because we are interdependent on one another. One of the things that's providing some of that interdependence or solidarity or cohesion is religion. It's the thing that people in a society can unite around, these sort of shared symbols and norms and meanings about things that we consider to be sacred, behaviors then that are appropriate, and behaviors that we might consider inappropriate, things that we consider to be profane. So we unite around these shared meanings and beliefs and value systems. Those rituals that we perform, often in a public manner, are ways for our society or our communities to get together to affirm those beliefs or reinsert those beliefs or socialize and pass down those values and beliefs to these babies that we made and the other people in the community. So rituals provide a sense of order, a sense of predictability and comfort and organization because we share these meanings and we believe the same things about the things that we should do and how people should behave. And the rituals provide the opportunities for us to get together. Even when we work in the urban environment and I don't see you Monday through Friday because you work on that side of the factory and I work on this side of the factory, well, we'll get together this weekend in the thing that we do as a weekly ritual, often religious based, for the community to come back together, essentially to get back to the thing that holds us. It's religion serves kind of as a glue. The second thing is, again, we've always had this sort of wonder about things. Religion provides a sense of purpose. And this is, again, think about when Durkheim would have written this. There's also this thing that says society is changing all the time. Things are, and there's always this fear that there's a certain amount of chaos, or maybe there's a tragedy, or maybe there's a huge storm that created a certain amount of disruption. Religion provides a sense of purpose that either one, there is some greater plan, there's some greater need for all this stuff. Even when you feel worn out or you feel lost or you are juggling and struggling, it is your sense of purpose. And again, you can share this sense of purpose with the people around you. So it's strength in our transitions and tragedies. There's a sense of a greater plan. And when there's a lack of direction, or again, something about the society is changing so much and you don't exactly know what to do or what to expect, well, you can default to those sort of basic fundamental beliefs that your religion might give you, the greater plan. And there's a greater plan and you don't even need to know it. So you might say, okay, you just let go and let it be, or sort of trust in the universe, trust in God's plan, trust in the way that nature will take care of it. So however you conceptualize that relationship of the people to this greater power, that provides a sense of purpose, particularly in a when you're feeling weak and without direction. The last thing, and we definitely know this, is that religion is one of those mechanisms of social control in society. In particular, religious beliefs will often carry an expectation of the ritual performance, but certainly an expectation of desired behavior. If you want to stay in the graces of God, if you want the universe to work out for you, then these are the things that you must do. And again, those cultural values, what we hold as a culture comes with those norms, informally and formally. Some of the formality of norms are religious or church based, right? It's the thing that tells you this is what you're supposed to do. This is what you should do. That's providing control. Control isn't about sort of prison, it's keeping things organized, because the opposite of control is disorder or chaos. So religion forms the basis of how we understand to control society, or how to avoid disorder and chaos. All mechanisms of social control provide social order, or in order to maintain social order. So Durkheim says religion is doing three things. It promotes social cohesion, it provides people with a sense of purpose, and it provides a social control mechanism. Social conflict theorists, not very many times that I would say this, but when it comes to social control, social conflict theory says, yep, that's exactly what religion is doing. It's a mechanism of social control. In particular, it is the thing that is keeping people in their place. Max Weber, Weber, who I usually mention when I'm talking symbolic interactionism, he wrote a book called The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. He takes this macro approach in understanding how a religious society that is Protestant is sort of prime for the development of capitalism. So it's not a symbolic interactionist approach of the book, although he is taking a macro approach looking at the people and what that means for this larger structure. But it's very functional in the way that it's sort of done, because he talks about how religion operates as a mechanism for social control. And I want to give you some blanket statements straight out my own notes, for instance. Let me figure out how to share my screen and show you this image. Nope, not that one. I'll do this one. So these are my notes, literally a copy paste from my own notes. On the left side, we're looking at some of the tenets of capitalism, things that we expect people to believe and do in a capitalist society. And on the right side, we're looking at tenets or expectations for Protestants. And again, very blanket statements. This is a book that's about this thick in its English translation. So it clearly is not just this table, right? But as a blanket statement, let's say that Catholics are more community focused and Protestants are more individual focused. Community as in, very charitable and, we need to do things for the greater good of everybody. Let's say that Catholicism in a society is going to have more communal focused norms. Well, Weber made the argument again in this book, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism, that it is the belief statements of Protestants that guide their behavior that makes sense for capitalism. So that when you look at the rise of capitalism in societies, you're more likely to find them in these more advanced, more higher income, and I say that more technologically advanced kind of societies, that you're going to find more Protestants than you are going to find more Catholics, because they just work together. So, for example, this idea that to attain wealth is a sign of God's blessing, that you should not really be lazy, you should always be working, and you shouldn't sort of waste your time in leisure activities. You should be out, attaining wealth because that's next to godliness, and the money that you make you shouldn't be doing anything with that money that is wasteful. You should be making sure your money is doing the things that continue to serve the glory of God. And if you have a business, that means put your money right back in your business because that's your work. In particular, your work is your calling. You are supposed to do the thing that you are being called to do. Find that thing that God intends for you to do, and you do that, and you put your time into that. You don't be lazy. You work all the time. You attain wealth so that you can continue to build that. If you look at what that sounds like on the left side, the argument is that you should always be trying to strive for profit. You should always be trying to build capital. You should work hard. You shouldn't be lazy. Anything that you make, you don't want to spend it foolishly. You want to reinvest it right back into your work. And everybody plays their part. What's your calling? You do that. That's their calling. They do that. This makes perfect sense, right? He's not saying that Protestantism created capitalism. He's not saying that capitalists created the Protestants. He's saying that the belief system that forms the basis of the Protestant religion is very congruent with capitalism in a society. So if capitalism as an economic system shows up or is on the table as the thing that we should do, for instance, it's going to better fit. If you are a Catholic in a highly capitalist society, you might, in this case, very blanket statement, face a bit of a role conflict because your home-based values, your community values, your Catholicism doesn't fit so well with maybe the messages that you get from work, for instance, if you think about one's day-to-day life. What this means, though, for Marx, the reason why I bring this up when I'm talking about what a social conflict theorists would say in terms of religion being a social control mechanism. Remember, Karl Marx is very, very nervous and upset about this rise of capitalism. He says that it's these kind of religious beliefs that keep poor people or working class people in their place because they're going to work hard. In fact, they're going to work so hard that they're going to tire themselves out trying to gain wealth. And they're not going to complain about it. And they're not going to complain about the ruling class, for instance, the bourgeoisie, because they're wealthy, which means they're godly. In fact, in some cases, they may believe that the ruling class has received God's favor, and so you shouldn't be fighting against them anyway. They might even be considered to be God's descendants in earlier societies, for instance, part of the descendants of God, for instance. So Marx is concerned that it's the religious beliefs itself that provide this mechanism of social control that keeps the inequality as it is, because poor people are not going to uprise. They're not going to engage in revolutionary behavior because they're just going to accept their place because their religious beliefs allow them to do that. They're not going to question the ruling class. They're going to believe that the ruling class is godly. They're going to believe that they're just supposed to do their work and that there's some greater plan. And more, they're going to believe that their rewards come in the afterlife, for instance. That's part of the belief system. So there's no need for me to fight to get out of this system. In fact, the best thing that I can do is try to find my place amongst the people who are doing well because that's me receiving God's grace. So yes, social conflict theorists would say religion is certainly operating as a social control mechanism, and it's in the way of revolution and social change. Have you ever heard that phrase, religion is the opiate of the masses? Um, Religion is the opium of the people, is actually what he said. And opium is a drug. Like we know what opioids are, right? So he's essentially saying that religion sort of operates in a way to drug people to not even really truly be paying attention to what's going on around them. Remember, he talked about sort of class consciousness. You need to know the position that you actually are in and then do something about it. So social conflict theorists agree with functionalists. It is a mechanism of social control, and it's keeping poor people poor because they're not going to do anything about it. And the last thing that I want to just say, there's a video, a crash course sociology video, number 39, that talks about religion and society. There's just a few minutes of this video that I want to point out to you. I believe it starts at about minute 5:10. And it also talks about, at that point in the video, the social inequalities that religion is used as a social control mechanism to maintain. In particular, she's talking about the role of religion in creating and perpetuating the level of stratification between men and women, for instance. So gender inequality. And she also gives an example of the ways that religion has been used to maintain social inequality between the races. So racial inequality. So I will make sure that I, do that thing where the video shows up, or at least put it in the instructions or in the description, and watch the whole video. It's good, study the stuff that we've been talking about. But at about minute 5:10 is where she gives those examples. She also gives the example, or mentions something that your book mentions, called liberation theology. And what's important about that is that, again, I don't want you to take away that social control means keep people in their place and everybody's prisoned and it's like a prison state. That's not what control is. Control is just order, and what you don't want is the opposite of order. Because one of the ways that religion might be used, she mentions, is that sometimes religion is used for the basis to try to create an order that's not unequal, create an order that is okay for everybody. So liberation theology, I think your book mentions this by name, is an example of the use of religious doctrine, or the use of the church to ensure or create change that is from the perspective of the oppressed, or from the perspective of the poor, essentially using the scriptures or using religious doctrine to create a world that's not unequal. So she doesn't mention it by name, but she gives you the example of the Quakers and the Southern Baptist Leadership Conference. No, the SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, of which we know the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King from during the Civil Rights Movement. Anyway, I will make sure that that video is in the description, and that's it for this one.